here in just a second. All right. All right. What's going on, everybody? Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online. This is Talking Gators Recruiting. And it's not just about high school and junior college targets these days. It's also about transfer portal targets. And today I'm joined by Corey Bender, Senior Recruiting Analyst for Gators Online, and Nick Della Torre, Senior Team Writer for Gators Online. And Nick, you're the center of you're the main attraction today. You had a big column this morning on Cormani McClain, 5-star defensive back in the 2023 class, who a lot of people thought was going to Florida, committed to Miami, then ended up going to Colorado, played one season at Colorado, and entered the NCAA transfer portal. And as we wrote over the weekend, Zach Albaverde, Cormani McClain visited the Florida Gators last Friday and is going to visit the Gators again soon. Nick, I bring you on because, again, you wrote a big column about Cormani McClain today and about the pros and cons of Florida taking him. Now, we don't know that he's definitely going to land at Florida. We have all heard information suggesting that Florida's got a pretty good shot to get him on board. Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you. Just your general thoughts on Cormani McClain in this unique situation.
Yeah, this is the nature of the world and recruiting. We watched DeAndre Robinson, Jameer Grimsley, Florida miss out on them only to have them land in the class. And now you look at a guy in Cormani McClain who shocked the world. I think shocked Miami fans, shocked Florida fans by picking, Colorado and in the transfer portal after just 1 year. So pros, obviously, it's a 6'2" cornerback with a 6'4" wingspan, has run in the 4.5s, can drop his hips, even at that size, can drop his hips, flip his hips, turn, run. He's a willing tackler, even though he has a wiry frame. I'd probably like to see him add some weight. And he has a frame that can hold that. On the field, this is a guy, if he does what he needs to do and continues to develop, can be a first, second, third round pick. You're adding a talented player in Cormani McClain. You don't need him to start right away. You have Jason Marshall, Devin Moore on either side. You have a great recruiting class last year from cornerbacks, or 2 years ago, with Dijon Johnson, Jakeem Jackson, Aaron Gates, Sharif Denson. You have a really young, talented room. Cormani adds a ton of depth to a room that is already has good depth. And if you get him to walk on with the potential that he can earn a scholarship, or even if you earn a scholarship, I think it makes a lot of sense on the field. Now, off the field is where I would have concerns. He transferred from Orlando, went to Lakeland High School. At one point, was removed as a starter because he wasn't showing up to class and was missing practices. And his coach there was a former Gator, All-American in the Mod Black. You go to Colorado because you want to play for Dion. And I wrote in my story, I thought it was good for Cormani. If you're missing class and doing stuff like that in high school, it might be the guys you're around, might be your friends that you're around. And getting away from that and going to a new environment can be helpful. When J.C. Jackson was at Florida, I thought that's too close to his friends at Immokalee. And he caught 4 felony armed robbery charges with his friends back. The charges are eventually dropped. He's kicked off the team. He goes to Maryland. And my first thought was, that's great. It removes him. It takes him a little bit farther. And Maryland didn't let him go home. He stayed on campus during Christmas break, during spring break, things like that. And then when he was drafted by the Patriots, I thought, that's great, even farther away. And it's helped him mature and grow and become his own person. He's had a great NFL career. I thought Cormani going to Denver or going to Boulder would be good for him. But that he was clearly not a culture fit. You're talking about a coach in prime who is tweeting at former players and going to war with former players on social media. Boulder and that program proved to not be what Cormani McClain needed in terms of helping him develop as a player, but probably more importantly, develop as a person. Now, I don't think if Cormani McClain doesn't fit Florida's culture, I don't think he ruins the culture. I don't think he ruins the locker room at all. But I think that's something that Florida is considering and something Florida needs to find an answer to. You spent and talked about and said it was so important to build the right culture hold guys accountable. I think they've gotten to a place where the guys are holding themselves and their teammates accountable. Maybe that's what Cormani needs. So I think, after thinking about it all weekend and writing the column that ran this morning on Monday, I think I landed on you can't force somebody to grow up and mature. You can bring them into the right situation. The old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You have to make changes for yourself, and you can have great people around you. You can have bad people around you, but at the end of the day, it falls on Cormani McClain's shoulders, and maybe Florida can help him and lead him in that right direction. Maybe everything that's happened, going from this high recruit who had a ton of NIL opportunities, going to Colorado, entering the portal, and then not having the options that you had when you were a senior in high school. Maybe that is humbling. Maybe that helps reset your mind and get you into a work mode where you want to put in extra. But I know that Florida is interested. He's interested in Florida, was interested in Florida as a high school recruit. On the field, it makes a lot of sense. I think off the field, there are questions about Cormani. He's never been in trouble like with the law or anything like that. Just immaturity issues, which, you can probably say for a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Keith might tell you that Corey and I are immature. And we are much older than 18, 19, and 20. So for me, it makes a lot of sense football-wise. And I think what now Florida will do, having him on the unofficial last week and then bringing him back in, is getting time with him. And, okay, what kind of sense can we get with him? We have a new defensive backs coach in Will Harris. What does Will Harris think when he meets him face-to-face? And I think getting him around the guys, seeing how he interacts with the team, seeing how he interacts with Will Harris, and what kind of person is he, because he's probably a different person than when you were recruiting him 15, 16 months ago.
All right, Nick, you mentioned in your story, and we're going to get to Corey Bender here in a minute, because Corey saw Cormani play in high school, so he's got some insight, into what kind of the physical attributes he has. Nick, you talked about the culture today. You talked about the culture of Florida in your column this morning, where you listed the pros and cons at GatorsOnline.com, the pros and cons of taking Cormani McClain should Florida have the opportunity. Culture is interesting, though, because some people say, and we've had some board posts about this today, some people say, well, winning produces good culture. Other people say good culture can lead to winning. And then some people say, including former players, and I know I've talked to some that say culture's overrated. So I guess my question is this, Nick, from what you've seen, you've written that, hey, the culture seems to be trending in the right direction. Players are holding people accountable. What are you hearing that leads you to believe that the culture is strong enough to bring in someone that, quite frankly, we're not hearing a lot of the other major programs involved here? I don't even know what other schools right now are recruiting Cormani McClain. We know he visited last week with his mother and his agent. We know that a bunch of schools reached out, but we don't know who really are the big threats here. But what is it about Florida's culture that, if you're a Florida fan, would give you confidence and say, I think this could be a situation, you players accountable, holding other players accountable, like you said, but I think this could be a situation where a young guy that needs some structure could thrive. Nick?
Yeah, I think, good winning can mask bad culture. That's another thing. I don't know that the culture in Urban Meyer's programs were great in terms of, guys being favorited if they were superstars, and maybe you want that. Listen, Urban Meyer's results at Florida speak for themselves. It was a winning culture. I don't know if it was a healthy culture, but it was a winning one. Florida is not going to let you be late to a meeting, be late to tutoring, be late to practice. You're not going to fail drug tests and play or be on the team. Billy Napier really believes that great men make great football players, and that's why they invest a ton of money into Gator Made and into all these other programs to try to create well-rounded student athletes. I'd argue that there's a lot of national champions who aren't great, filled with great people in the locker room. But as a college coach, I appreciate that. Like, hey, you're investing in the young men. So that's kind of why I think the structure at Florida, and the way that the staff will hold you accountable. Like, if you want to play football at Florida, you can't be late to 9 a.m. Spanish class. Like, don't do it if you want to play. So it can be a culture shock. A lot of guys don't want to do that. Like, hey, listen, the Cordell Jones quote, I came here to play football, not play school. Some guys have that mentality. Not saying that Cormani does, but you're going to be held to that standard. You're here to be a student athlete, and it's tough. You've seen a lot of guys leave it, not want to be a part of it.
I'm going to be a little cynical here, Nick. I would argue that if we polled all 16 coaches, because the SEC is now 16 teams, I would argue that all 16 would say they've got that identical culture. I think.
Yeah. I think if they say it, saying it and acting on it are different things.
And I'm not saying Florida isn't that, but I'm just saying every school's got the toughest compliance office. Listen, some of the schools that are on probation right now, I was told, had such incredibly strong compliance office. Oh, they'd never let anything happen. Well, they're on probation. And so I don't know. I'm just playing a realist here. It just seems like that's something that everybody says. And we all like to think that the program we win, the program we root for, the program we cover holds itself to a higher standard, but we don't really know that for a fact, but it is interesting. Cormani McClain, man. I mean, this guy is an ultra talented guy in high school. What were some of the traits you saw that would make you think this guy can be an elite college player if he can kind of get things moving in the right direction?
I think the first thing that sticks out is the ball skills. Even his junior year, he had almost, 10 or 11 interceptions. So in Lakeland, year in, year out, even when he was at Lake Gibson, they're playing top competition. That's what they're known for. So I think you see a kid, obviously 6'2". He has the size for that new age cornerback, but he also has the timing in that vertical to kind of match that on the ball skill side. So I think each year too, even in the second year, they tried to avoid him, and he still had a good amount of interceptions, more than what most kids have at the high school level. So I think when you look at the course of his high school career, he played receiver too, and he was really good at that position. But I think the ball skills is what sticks out the most, and you mix that in with the prototypical size. He has to get stronger, he has to get a little bit bigger too, but I think overall he has all the skill in the world. It's really about just kind of settling down and putting it full to use and kind of being patient. I thought Nick said a good point. Coming into the portal, he didn't have the options he did out of high school, and that can be humbling. And I think that's a kid that probably needs it a little bit. It's just like you said, you go out to Boulder, you go work for Dion, and you think it's going to be – I thought it was a perfect situation for him. I thought Nick explained it perfectly. I thought individually for him it would have been great, but I think that was such a humbling experience, and now that he's back in a locker room with even more talented guys on that roster at Florida, I think the hope is if he does go to Florida, he just kind of buckles his chin strap and gets down to it and shows people why he was that 5-star plus, prospect. So all the talent's there on the field, Keith. It's really about, like you said, the off the field and buckling down and, kind of putting everything together.
All right, we're going to let Nick go in a minute. I'm going to get y'all's predictions on Cormani in just a second. But before I do, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also for everybody watching today, if you use this code right below me, UF1, you get 2 months of access to Gators Online for only $1. You can't beat it. That's going to get you, by the way, through official visit season, which starts on the weekend of May 31st, which really starts in earnest the weekend of May 31st. Florida will have 3 big official visit weekends. And if you remember, that's when things sort of took off last year. Now, it's a different beast this year. Recruits seem to be a little bit more patient, but that's when things really took off during this upcoming window. We saw Florida gain, 10, 12 commitments during that run last year. So UF1, use that code, 2 months of access to Gators Online for only $1. All right, I got to get y'all's predictions here. Nick, is Cormani McClain going to be a Florida Gator before all is said and done?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Florida's at 85 right now, and plan on hosting Elijah Badger. So how do you make room? You can always make room. It's a tough conversation. It's the dirty part of college football. It's good that the guys are getting paid now, because used to not have options. Now you can transfer and you're getting paid before they get cut to make room for other players. So it'll be interesting. I think you have to check your ego at the door if you're Cormani, because it's getting a scholarship is huge, not just financially, but like ego wise. Like, what do you mean I'm a walk-on? I'm a former 5-star. And if Florida only can offer a preferred walk-on, you have to check your ego to accept that. It does to me, though, like if your other option is being a scholarship player at Marshall, UCF, maybe not UCF, that's my alma mater, but like Marshall or USF, is it less embarrassing to walk on at Florida or be a scholarship guy at USF? The fit makes sense player-wise. I think Cormani and the staff need to have a conversation about these are what the expectations are. This is what you have to meet off the field to even be able to get a chance to be on the field. And if they come to an agreement, I think it makes a lot of sense. And Florida and Cormani would pull the trigger.
All right, Corey Bender. Will Cormani McClain be a Gator? Again, I don't even know who is the main threat right now. And that's what we don't know. There's so much uncertainty here. I think when you look at 2 visits in the span of a week or so, though, that makes you, you're reading the tea leaves in our business a lot, makes you think that Florida's probably the move here. But Corey, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think Florida gets him. And I think overall, like you said, Keith, that's exactly what I was going to say too. The fact that it's a second visit coming up and just dealing with transfers and how it's all set up, him coming back to me has a lot of writing on the wall. USF's another school that I've kind of heard a little bit about. With him being from Lakeland, Coach Baylor used to be at Lakeland. He was, basically ran the recruiting over there and was a long-known assistant over there with the Dreadnoughts. So he's at USF. They have a good relationship. And I think it will come down to, just like you guys said, that ego, checking at the door. Do I want to be, I'm a former 5-star that could be a walk-on, or do you just say, hey, I want to stay close to home and go play at USF and hopefully, start 3 years and, bounce out to the NFL type thing. But I think right now, Florida, with my gut and just him coming back a second time, I have to roll with Florida right now.
I agree with you, Corey. I think at the end of the day, at least right now, I feel like he's going to end up at Florida. We got Scooter Man checking in. Nick's going to be leaving in a second, but Scooter says, Nick definitely has a kid on the way, back-to-back shows, putting in that OT. Hope this doesn't mean he's going to sneak away for a few years. But, all right, Nick, we appreciate you stopping by. Nick, what are you working on right now? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I'm going to be up in Jacksonville tonight. So if you're there at Billy Napier's Gator Caravan speaking tour, come up, say hello. Love talking to fans. Actually looking to talk to some fans tonight to see what their thinking is. Always like to get the pulse of the fan base and work on what fans want to read. At the end of the day, I can write a million stories. If no one's clicking on them, I won't have a job. So always want to write what's pressing on the fan base's mind. So I'll be there. And then baseball. Baseball's been a disastrous season. Probably the worst I've covered. But 3 games left. Florida's got to win. And then they'll be in Hoover. It's the push for the NCAA tournament. Kevin O'Sullivan has been in college baseball as a coach for 25 years. He's never missed the tournament. There is a real chance Florida misses it this year. So baseball's winding down. Football's gearing up.
Actually, Nick, let me interrupt you real quick. We also have, before I forget, we got another visitor, coming, the Badger kid, the receiver from Arizona State. Any quick thoughts on that situation before we let you go?
Yeah, Badger's an immediate take. When I said, after spring, when I said Florida needs to find a guy that can come in and compete with DK and Khalil, this is the guy that does that. Yards after the catch, does that in his sleep. The issue is he had a back injury last year, caused him to miss some games. The rumors are that it may have needed surgery. He didn't want to get surgery. And I think Florida, if you get him on an official visit, you take him through a medical and you see what that back is. I'd been told that other schools who had reached out, like a Texas and an Alabama, had ended up backing off. I know he's going to have, I think, a visit to Oregon, already visited Washington, is going to visit Florida. On the field, super talented. I don't know that there's like off the field issues. I think it's just with a guy with 1 year to play. Do you get him on campus and do you end up not being able to play him because of an injury? So I think that would be the only holdup is medical for Elijah Badger. All
right. So 2 portal visitors that we know of, we think are coming this week. Remember, Florida's very secretive about this stuff. Everybody should know that. There's a lot more information to be gotten, or at least it's easier to get when it's a high school kid or a junior college kid. Portal stuff, it's a little tricky because these recruitments happen so fast. So schools are really working hard to limit the amount of information that gets out. All right, that was the incomparable Nick Della Torre. Nick, go enjoy your drive up to Jacksonville. I know you love driving through Stark, Waldo, Lottie, Baldwin, all those great times. Yes. So be careful on the road. Yeah, we'll do it again soon. And now
Yeah.
it's yeah. Oops, I cut him off too soon. All right,
I
Corey,
was going to say, go get him, Tiger. I was going to say it.
Yeah. All right, Corey. Let's Elijah Badger. Let me get back to him real quick. You're talking about a transfer receiver from Arizona State.
Yeah.
3 seasons at Arizona State. He has, 7 catches his first year, but then in 2022 he had 70 receptions for 866 yards, and then last season 65 catches for 713 yards. 10, 12 yards a catch guy. 10 touchdowns, longest catch in 3 seasons at Arizona State, 65 yards. So I wouldn't say he's like a take it to the house guy, but you got to have these sturdy, dependable receivers. Florida needs more guys. I mean, my question would be, can he be a game-breaking guy, Corey, that Florida you really needs in this offense? You got one in Trey Eugene Trey Wilson, and you hope you have another in Aiden Mizell, game-breaker types, but you don't know. You need more guys that can take it to the house, that can get you the 30, 40, 50-yard plays, because it is so hard. I say this over and over, Corey. So hard to do these 80-yard, 17-play drives over and over and over. Too many things go wrong. All right, Corey, I want to get your thoughts. So Florida picked up 2 recent commitments since the last time we did one of these shows. 3-star defensive lineman Jeremiah McLoud from Gadsden County, Florida, just north of Tallahassee. And then 3-star running back Chad Gasper out of Texas. So you ready to do some breakdowns here, Corey? You good?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Let's tell everybody what Florida's getting. First of all, Jeremiah McLoud, listed at 6'3", 285. I think he's probably 6'2", maybe not quite 6'3". 3-star guy, number 37 defensive lineman in the country, was committed to Mississippi State. LSU came in hot and heavy on him. Georgia offered, but I don't think that Georgia was pushing. Florida landed him 2 weeks ago. Corey, what are your general thoughts on what you've seen on film of Jeremiah McLoud?
Yeah, no, I like him a lot. I actually think when I watch his film, I think he's fairly underrated. I think he has a great motor. Really impressive get off too. He's very, nice acceleration up the field. He's a guy that he doesn't look too heavy footed out there. He looks fairly athletic. I think there's some positional versatility as well. But overall, I think it's a guy that kind of just has a motor that goes from start to finish. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's providing backside pursuit or the play's way down the field. He just keeps going and going. But most of the time, he's involved in the play. A lot of that's his impressive get-off. He's a guy that, like you said, takes advantage of those one-on-one situations. And I think overall could use some more finesse, some more go-to moves, because I think right now in high school, his athleticism and just his strength when he bull rushes gets him by most of the time. I mean, he's a dominant player when it comes to that stuff. But him kind of adding a swim move, a spin, adding some more finesse, I think will help him at the SEC level. But I think watch his film, man. I think he's a 4-star type of guy. I definitely think like I said, Charles Powers, all those guys, those are the experts when it comes to rankings and all that. But in my opinion, I think he's a no-brainer 4-star guy who could definitely rise over the next several months.
That's interesting. I'm sort of mixed on this one. I don't know. He's from Georgia. He played at Lee County High School up there, big time program in Leesburg, Georgia, just north of Albany. But he's not there anymore. I don't know what the reasoning was behind that. He now goes to school just north of Tallahassee, and he's doing good things down there. Coming off of a productive season, the local newspaper, the Tallahassee Democrat, I believe, named him all area. So you want to see productivity. You don't just want to see a body. You don't just want to see the frame and kids posting about their offers and their workout videos. You want to see actual production on Friday night. So I think that is there. I guess my question would be, why weren't more of the bigger programs going after him that hard? And I don't know that that's necessarily fair. I'm just not one that always believes that the school I cover out-evaluates everybody. There's bright people over in Gainesville. I'm not saying they're not, but there's always sort of this leap of faith. I mean, who did you beat? That's one of the things that I really always ask. Who did you beat? Now, they did beat out LSU, and Bo Davis, the defensive line coach there, has been at Texas, where they just produced a first-round draft pick in this last draft, by the way. It was a product of Bo Davis. And then previously he's worked at Alabama. So he's well thought of. So I do like that. So if you're going to hang your hat on something, you look at the physical attributes, Corey. You're watching the film. I'm looking at who you beat and how did you outmaneuver things. And they did beat a pretty solid recruiter in Bo Davis at LSU. So I like that. I'd like a guy. I wish he was a little bigger. Again, listed at 6'3". I went and interviewed him, and he wasn't much taller than me. I'm 5'11", so maybe I was maybe I was on my tippy toes. I don't know. But
that could be it, though. I was going to say that I haven't seen him in person like you have, and I think the height could be a thing. We see that every cycle with certain guys who are listed at this and they look like great on film, but you see them in person and that could be a thing. So that's a good point I was going to add too.
By the way, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm just saying, now about Jamonte Waller, I was right. Okay. Yeah. The one-time Gator commit who signed with Auburn and probably is under 6 feet tall. And we were told by everybody that he's 6'2", you idiots. And I'm like, well, listen, all I can tell you is I stood right next to the guy. I'm 5'11". Now, sometimes I lie and tell women I'm 6 feet. But look, here's the deal. He can play. He's physical. He does have long arms. He's built like kind of a Warren Sapp guy. He's not a bodybuilder. He doesn't look like Mr. Universe, but he looks like a guy that is going to get in there and get dirty and do all the dirty work inside the line of scrimmage. You got to have those guys. So we will see. We will see about that one. We'll see about all of them. You never really know, but I'm glad, Corey, you liked this film because that gives you some hope and some optimism there. Now, Chad.
Well, I was going to say Chad Gasper too, just real quick, because I know you actually did the eval for him. Because I had the commitment story for that one. So we bounce back if you want to do the Gasper one. I know you kind of dissected his film, but probably a little bit more than I.
Well, give me a second. Why don't you tell me a second? I'm trying to get all this stuff.
I think overall with Chad. I think with Chad Gasper though, I will add this though about Chad Gasper. And it kind of ties in with Coach Jaluk. What I want to add too, we kind of highlight Coach Jaluk as one of the best recruiters on the staff right now. And it kind of goes back with Gasper. Florida jumped in the mix. I believe it was January 29th, late in the mix. Coach Hill visits him at school. Very personable guy, very genuine. And you talked to him at the time. He said, man, that was one of the best meetings I've had with a coach. I'm excited to get down to Gainesville. Like everything goes out. Everything's perfect, right? He sets the OV for May 31st. And, one of the main reasons he said when he visited in the spring too, I just love the culture in that running back room. I just like how Coach Luke focuses on, obviously he wants to make me a better player, but he really is focused on just making me a better man by the time I leave, by the time I leave college. And that's something I did want to piggyback on because I know we've been talking about Coach Luke and who are the best recruiters on the staff. And I think when you look at Chad Gasper, he didn't even want to wait to his OV date. And obviously there's some other running backs on the board that Florida was evaluating for that second spot to go alongside Waltez Clark. But kudos to Coach Jaluk, man. I think even with Jaden Baugh last cycle, he's definitely kind of proved himself. And for a second running back, it's going to be interesting. Not the most production, I believe. He did his sophomore year. He missed time due to injury. His junior year, it looked like he played most of the games, but he's one I'm excited to kind of further evaluate, especially as a senior.
Well, here's the thing with Chad Gasper. I'm looking at his stats right now, and they're not going to blow anybody away. So we do all that work so the readers don't have to. But in 3 varsity seasons, 300 carries, so about 100 a carry, 1,463 total yards. That's it. Now, some guys have 2,800 a season. He's got 1,460 in 3 seasons. Average per carry, 4.8. That worries you a little bit. That doesn't strike you as elite. 400-yard games, 23 touchdowns. Now, that's what scares you or what concerns you. But here are the things. There's always a reason. It's not because he stinks. It's because his team passes a lot, Corey. They threw for over 3,000 yards last year, which means they are built to throw the ball, which means carries are down, which means he's probably having to pass block a good bit, okay? Which means that offensive line is probably built to pass block, not to run block. So as a coach, then you go through and you look at the film and you look for traits. Is he fast enough? Well, he runs about a 4.5, 4.6. Is he big enough? Well, can he elude tacklers? Can he break through tacklers? And it appears he does both. Some clips of his, he has a moderate to good to above average acceleration. So you need to see that. So Jabbar Jaluk goes through and he's not looking at stats. People always say, well, my kid ran for 2,800 yards. They ain't looking at stats. They're looking for skill set. Now they want to see, we talked about this earlier. It sounds like I'm contradicting myself. You want to see production on Friday night, but you can only produce what your team allows you to produce. And so he had 99 carries last year, 488 yards, 4.9 yards a carry. Again, not electric, not something that catches your attention. 61 yards a game, long run of 55 yards, 100-yard game. He also had 15 catches for 136 yards, 9.1 yards a game. Again, this is not a guy that is going to set the world on fire with statistics, primarily because his team throws the ball. Again, not only do they throw it, which limits his carries, but they are built to throw, which probably tells you their pass blocking is at a higher level than their run blocking. You can't do it all yourself. So who would be a guy that you may want to compare this guy to? It's hard to know. I mean, he does have some wiggle, Corey. He can. I think the thing I like best is his ability to break tackles. He's getting swarmed on every play, and maybe that play's 11, but the other guy may only have gotten 6. So he's not wowing you with 80-yard runs, a lot of which is just sometimes one cut and you're gone. He doesn't have that ability to do that because the offense he plays in. So, it remains to be seen. To me, these are two interesting takes because it feels like Chad Gasper, somebody mentioned this on our message board, probably a guy you could have waited to take, but Florida didn't see it that way. They have a higher value of him than a lot of schools do, and that's okay. And in Jabbar Jaluk, a lot of people trust, and that's a good thing because you look at what they've done with running backs the past few years. And also, we should point out Florida now has 2 running backs on board in the 2025 class, Chad Gasper and Waltez Clark. Well, you don't necessarily want the same guy in both backs, Corey. Waltez Clark is a burner. He just ran a 10.77 second 100-meter dash. That is 100 meters dash. That is very good for a running back that's 6'5", 195 pounds. Chad Gasper, a little bit more of the bowling ball type, even though if you look at their height and weight, they're about identical. But, sometimes a guy's 6 foot 200 and another guy's 6 foot 200, but they're not built the same. They got the same height, they got the same weight, but the arm length is different, the chest is different, the legs are different, and that's what I'd say about these two guys. This guy is more of a guy that's going to pound a defense, I think, make him fight, and then Waltez Clark's a guy that's going to a guy that you could really take advantage of a tired defense with his speed. I mean, he has got speed, incredible cutting, and he's also very good out of the backfield as a pass catcher too. So it seems, Corey, I did a lot of talking there, but it seems like these two would complement each other fairly well. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing too. It kind of reminds me when ETN came out of high school, he was fans were kind of wishy-washy on it. He was a high 3-star, depending on what service, a low 4-star, and kind of the same type of thing. He had to fight for a lot of yards in high school. There'd be times where he really had to navigate through clutter and kind of make a few guys miss before accelerating upfield. And it's kind of like the same situation with Gasper. And I kind of wonder, too, as a senior, Keith did a great job of highlighting that, how his team is very, pass-oriented. That's what they focus on. But him being a Florida Gators commit now, it'll be interesting to see if maybe they try to showcase him a little bit more. Maybe his senior year, they kind of feature him a little bit more, and those stats kind of raise even better. So it'll be fun to kind of track his senior year. Like you say, he's in the fold. He seems solid. Kansas was the biggest competition at the time, but he did have Oregon, Michigan, and Ohio State, I believe. They came by and they offered him at some point, and that's, like you said, it wasn't like a guy he ran for 1,500 yards a season ago and schools just jumped on. Some of those schools saw those same traits. He didn't have a lot of production, but they felt good offering early on. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. What we're not going to do is we're not going to sit here and act like every guy. I mean, every guy is the next Walter Payton. We don't know, okay? Mm-hmm. And we're honest about that. So before we get into a little bit more recruiting for everybody, and then we're going to take your questions. I promise. Got to do the promo one more time. Right now, if you go through, and I'm getting calls here. If you go through YouTube, strictly for our YouTube subscribers or YouTube followers here, if you use code UF1 below, code UF1, you get 2 months of access to Gators Online for $1. Again, UF1 is the code, 2 months of access to Gators Online for $1. All right, Corey, before we get going, I just want to do the rundown here right now. Florida, 5 commitments, okay? The number 19 recruiting class in the country. And the 5 commitments, Jaylen Wiggins, 4-star defensive lineman, 4-star running back Waltez Clark, 3-star defensive lineman Jeremiah McLoud, 3-star receiver Josiah Abdullah, and 3-star running back Chad Gasper. Of those 5, I think the one that we're all going to be tracking moving forward is Jaylen Wiggins. He's a top 100 national recruit, the highest ranked commit on the Gators commit list, Corey. He's got official visits set to Florida, Stanford, and Florida State. But Notre Dame just recently offered. I do expect he probably will officially visit Notre Dame. This is a kid of high character, a kid of high athletic ability, and a kid of high academics. And that's how Notre Dame has gotten involved here. So I think that there is some optimism in South Bend that they may have a shot. We'll see. We know that Florida continues to feel great. He's got longstanding relationships with the staff. And again, he's going to have his official visit coming up soon. So if you're Florida, this is a smart guy. He's probably going to take these official visits. I don't know that you can talk him out of it. But Notre Dame could be emerging as maybe the team to watch. Corey, any of these commitments you concerned about? Or you feel pretty good about all of them for Florida right now?
No, I think I was actually going to mention the same thing in Jaylen Wiggins too. And he's been one thing I want to add too, he's been open and honest about taking OVs other schools from the start. even right when he committed to Florida, he's like, I'm still going to go out and take my trips. And I think overall he's a great culture fit. I wanted to add that too. I just think everything we talk about with Billy Napier, what he wants in the locker room, I think Jaylen Wiggins is that. We call him an old soul. He's just kind of almost, when you talk to him, it seems like you're talking to an older person. He's very mature. But I think overall, I think a lot of these other schools are playing the long ball with him. Just hoping, right now, I always say it every year. Anyone could be an off-season all-star talking about schools and recruiting, but once the season plays out and some losses happen, obviously some wins happen too, it can change recruiting good or bad. And I think Notre Dame and some of these schools are hoping over the long haul they can kind of change Wiggins' mind. But I think right now he's definitely happy to commit to Florida.
Yeah, let's get to a couple of questions. One of them here from the No Justice. Are the Gators still in for quarterback Antoine Hill? Corey, we both talked to him in the last few weeks. He told me a couple of weeks ago he hadn't heard from Florida in a while. He talked to him a couple of days later, and he had actually heard from Florida that morning. But right now, Memphis is really pushing hard for him. They're telling him, look, we're going to have a 4-year starting quarterback. You're going to be able to come in. He'll be done after the season. You'll be able to come in and compete for a starting job. Meanwhile, Florida seems to be recruiting Tramel Jones, the Florida State commit from Jacksonville, maybe harder than anyone right now. To me, Tramel Jones is the one to watch. Committed to FSU last April of 2023. Said last week that he's probably going to officially visit Florida, would probably be the second or third week in June. If Florida can get him in for an official visit, that could be a game changer in his recruitment. They're pushing. They're making some real progress here. It's probably a toss-up at this point. FSU would like to hold on. They certainly have other options if it doesn't work out. For Florida, he probably is the top option right now. If he does shut it down and say, hey, I'm going to FSU, then I could see Florida putting the foot on the gas for an Antoine Hill. But right now, Florida seems to be full throttle with Tramel Jones. Corey, we don't have too many more questions out here. A lot of stuff on the Badger kid, the Elijah Badger, the transfer from Arizona State. A lot of Cormani McClain talk. We've already kind of gone over that. Let's see, guys. I know we talked recruiting. Let me pull the question up. I know we talked recruiting, but I just want to give the Lady Gators softball team some love on winning the SEC championship. That is correct. I think I read, maybe, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, was that their first SEC championship since 2019? Does that sound about right, DeAndre? Program back on top in the SEC, a very good seed going into the NCAA tournament. You want to see that. Obviously, historically, Florida's been great in the Sears Directors Cup, good at all the other sports outside of football, and the softball team, Tim Walton's done such a great job. So thank you for that comment. All right. Highway Master does not want Cormani McClain. Okay, let's see here. El Beezy says, can you discuss how Elijah Badger changes and complements the Gators offense? Yeah, a good solid player. We mentioned this earlier, but not necessarily a game breaker. And so his career average, last season he averaged 11 yards a catch playing in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 was pretty solid last year, but that would lead you to believe, 6'2", 290 pounds. This probably isn't a guy that's going to be sprinting toward the end zone every time he catches the ball. But you've got to have good players that know how to get open, that are dependable. So this guy had 65 catches last year, Corey, 70 the year before. That's valuable.
I think that's the position Florida needs. They need a bigger receiver and obviously a second receiver to really complement Eugene Wilson. I think if it's going to be any season that they need that, and, it's this year. And also with Badger, too, he's kind of fits that mold exactly what Billy Gonzalez likes on the perimeter. He likes these bigger receivers, these big-bodied threats that can kind of go up and win those jump ball situations. You have Eugene Wilson, who is the opposite of that. He's a guy, obviously, who's in space. You can kind of put him, in the flats, turn nothing into something. You can do everything you want with him. But they need a bigger receiver to complement him. And I think this year is kind of the perfect fit. So it makes sense to me.
Is Cormani McClain expected to make a decision soon? We think so. We don't have an actual day or time, but we don't think he's going to. And in fact, Steve Wilfong of On3 just wrote an update. If Corey could help me find this update, we could say what he wrote and say, we might be able to tell you. I'm looking here. It's never, this guy ruined Twitter, if you ask me, because I can no longer find. I do searches of people I follow and they don't even come up anymore.
Well, look, right as we're speaking right now, Will Fong and P. Dacos just submitted On3 prediction machine picks for Florida to land Cormani McClain as we speak.
There you go. And we pretty much said the same thing, that we feel like Florida's in a very strong spot. So there you go. We just don't know exactly when. Go check that out. Steve Wiltfong has just written about this, about the Cormani McClain situation. Make sure you check out Nick Delatorre's column this morning as well. All right. Dave Deasy says, we need DJ Picket. And sorry, Nick is, yes, we're still recording. Nick's messaging while we're recording. I can't do, hey, Nick.
We had a phone bomb right in the middle of the.
We need DJ Picket. Dave says this kid's a stud. He will visit the week of the Miami game. Do you think we can pull him off? That's Florida. 5-star defensive back, corner or safety or a receiver. DJ Picket. Corey, does Florida have a real shot?
I mean, they have a shot, but it's definitely, some people say courtesy visit. I wouldn't say exactly that, but it's definitely an uphill battle right now. Talked to a few people, close to his recruitment. They still believe that LSU and Miami are positioned best right now. But if you're going to host McClain, here we're talking about McClain, host Pickett, he's coming from the Miami game. He has the family ties to that program. If Florida can somehow pull that off and they get that victory, I think that'd be the perfect weekend to do that with him in town. But I think the odds are stacked up against them. I think they're going to have to really have a decent season, and then hopefully down the stretch they can win them over, but it's going to be tough. It
feels like Florida's in a better spot for DJ Pickett than they were a month ago. I mean, they're making progress.
No, for sure. I agree with that for sure.
All right, last question. Lucas Mann says, who would you guys say is the top wide receiver target? And then also he says, I saw Chad Simmons say Vernell Brown. The third is now a big three battle. Yeah, that's accurate. Vernell Brown is Florida State, we think right now. Florida State may have the edge. I think at the end of the day, Vernell Brown's going to be a Florida Gator, though. I do believe that, Lucas. Top receivers are, I'm looking at this now, top receiver targets, we got Donovan Oluvide of IMG Academy, Vernell Brown of where's he go? Orlando Jones. And then also Dallas Wilson's a guy Florida loves a lot.
Yeah.
Out of Tampa Bay.
Cortez Mills, too, probably in there.
Yeah, Cortez Mills out of Miami. But I think he might be even down because you've got one receiver committed, Josiah Abdullah, so you may only have 3 spots remaining. So Vernell Brown's one. CJ Ingram, Cornelius Ingram's kid, is one. So then you probably might only have one more spot for a bunch of guys. And so I would say from that group, Oluvide may be the guy that they like.
Caleb Cunningham's a long shot for me.
Yeah, I'm saying really, yeah, exactly. But Oluvide to me would be if you got Abdullah, CJ Ingram, if you land him, that's 2. If you get Vernell Brown, that's 3. If you only add one more, I think they would think Donovan Oluvide may be the best in terms of best option in terms of who can you get versus combined with talent. So obviously Caleb Cunningham and Dallas Wilson may have more talent, let's say, subjectively speaking, but you probably don't have as good a chance to land those guys. And so
you look at Abdul, obviously a smaller guy, obviously in the class, but then you look at Ingram, and then you look at obviously Donovan at IMG, 2 bigger guys. I think if they land that class, Keith, that you point out, if that did come together, a lot of good size and a lot of good open field ability to mix it in. Vernell Brown's I think Vernell Brown, if you somehow land him, I think he's a 5-star talent when it's all said and done. I think if you could land him, he's would be what Eugene Wilson was in the class, a few cycles ago.
Yeah, there's other guys Florida's recruiting. You got Nashawn Montgomery out of Miami Central. You've got Kobe Howard out of Hollywood Chaminade, who says Florida's his leader, but probably isn't a take right now. So they're in a pretty good spot, they think, at receiver right now, especially with Florida trending now in the right direction with Vernell Brown III, who, by the way, is 7-on-7 teammates with quarterback target Tramel Jones. They both play for, I think, the South Florida Express, I want to say. Yeah. So a lot of moving parts at receiver, but those are the guys to watch. Donovan Oluvide, I'm hoping I'm getting his name, I'm spelling or pronouncing his name right, from IMG. I would say that USC and Washington are the 2 other schools to watch, but Florida pushing hard for him. So I think that is it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'm trying to think what else we got going on. One more time. Use this code below, UF1, to get 2 months of access to Gators Online for $1. We're going to do this show again in a few days. We may even have a special show tomorrow with Nick Delatorre coming off his trip to Jacksonville this evening, Monday evening, where he's going to listen to Billy Napier speak to a Gators booster club. So a lot of stuff going on in Gators recruiting right now. Our next recruiting focused show, we're going to also talk about the road trip I just took from Opelika, Alabama to Atlanta to Milledgeville, Georgia to Miami. And we're going to discuss a lot of those guys and where I think Florida sits with them. So for Corey Bender, Senior Recruiting Analyst for Gators Online, I am Keith Niebuhr. Corey, great job as usual. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like, I guess they're the same thing. Hit the subscribe button. Like what we do. Leave a comment, good or bad. Thank you to all of you for stopping by. You guys are great. Gator Nation is unparalleled. So everybody take it easy. Thank you so much.